Today's lesson is on climate factors, or basically factors that affect climate. And before I go into some of the factors that affect climate, I wanted to do a quick review of what climate is, in case you've forgotten. So remember, climate is just the average weather conditions for an area over a long period of time. So it might be things like temperature, humidity, wind, precipitation. Again, so it's things like summer in Dallas is usually hot and dry. Alaska is usually cold. The Sahara Desert is usually hot. Okay, so it's just the average weather conditions for a long period of time. So now what we're going to talk about are factors that can affect the climate of a region. We're not going to go over all of them. We're just going to go over 7 of them. The first one we're going to go over is latitude. This should be a pretty obvious one. How does the latitude affect the climate? Well, the farther you are from the equator, the cooler it is. Okay, that's a pretty general statement, right? The farther from the equator, the cooler. Or the higher the latitude, the cooler. The lower the latitude, the hotter. And if you remember, it's because of the directness of the sunlight. Near the equator, the sunlight is hitting more directly, so it's going to be hotter. Near the poles, the sunlight is going to be more spread out, not as direct, so it's going to be cooler. So that's a huge characteristic. You probably know that. You go north, and it gets cooler. A second factor is altitude. This one's pretty obvious too. The higher the altitude, the cooler the temperature. Okay, you're farther from the major body of the earth that was heated by the sun. So the higher you go, the cooler the temperature. Next one, distance from a body of water. This one might not be quite as obvious. Remember, when we talked about land and sea breezes, water takes a long time to heat up and a long time to cool down. So if you are near a body of water, you're going to have more average weather conditions. If you're inland or landlocked, so away from a large body of water, you're going to have more extreme temperatures. Summers are hotter, winters are cooler. Places on the coast, think of a place like Portland or Seattle. Okay, winters aren't all that cold, summers aren't all that hot because it's right in the ocean. Take a place that's the same latitude about as that, maybe North Dakota. Hot in the summer, cold in the winter. Okay, more extreme temperature variations the farther you are or the more landlocked you are from body of water. Ocean currents. If there is a warm ocean current near you, you're more likely to be warmer. If there's a cold ocean current, you're more likely to be cooler. Good example of that is England up here. You see England gets warmed by the Gulf Stream. So we have warm water coming from the equator, goes up along the US and then over to England. You think of where England is latitude-wise, it's up kind of mid-Canada. Do you think of the climate of England like mid-Canada? Not usually. You think of it as warmer. And that's because it has this Gulf Stream to keep it warmer. Prevailing winds. We talked about our global wind patterns. If you're located near the 30s, it's more likely going to be desert condition, drier because the air is descending. If you're located near the equator or near the 60s, it's more likely going to be more precipitation because the air is rising. Remember, as the air rises, it condenses, forms clouds and rain or snow. Mountain ranges. Mountain ranges affect climate in 2 ways. The first way is kind of the obvious one. The higher, the cooler. We already talked about altitude. The second way is that each side of the mountain will have a different climate. The side that the wind hits is called the windward side. The leeward side, or the lee side, is the side kind of away from the wind. The windward side is going to have much more moisture than the leeward side. The reason for this is, as the air rises, so it's forced to rise by the mountain, as the air rises, it gets cooler, it makes clouds and condenses because, again, as air rises, it cools. The cool air can't hold as much moisture. So it condenses, forming rain and snow. So the windward side has lots of rain and snow, while the leeward side of a mountain is dry. As the air goes down the mountain, it's going to warm, and as it warms, it can hold more moisture, so the air gets drier and drier and drier as it falls. That's why you see a rain shadow, as it's called, or deserts, lots of times on the leeward side of a mountain range. there isn't any moisture left in the air to give rain. So they call it a rain shadow, or it's a desert. All the rain, all the water was squeezed out of the air over on the windward side. And the last of the ones that we're going to talk about, there definitely are more climate factors, but the last of the major climate factors are seasonal winds and called monsoons. Think of monsoons as a seasonal land and sea breeze. So instead of a daily land and sea breeze, this is going to be a seasonal one. And you can think of it just like we did with the land and sea breezes. Except now instead of saying during the day the land heats faster than the water, you can say during the summer the land is going to heat faster than the water. And this happens in places like India, Bangladesh area that are surrounded by water. So the land is going to heat faster than the water in the summer. That's going to cause the air above the land to be warmer. It's going to rise, making low pressure. Air is going to condense because it's cooler, and you get rain. So the summer is the rainy season. The winter is the opposite. In the winter, the air cools faster, or the land cools faster than the water, so the air over the land is going to fall, making high pressure, so there isn't going to be any rain over the land. So we have a dry season. So we have summer being wet, winter being dry because of this seasonal land and sea breeze. So those are a few of the factors that can affect climate.